Welcome to 2023's Windows 10 optimization guide for power users and gamers, where you can make Windows just feel a lot snappier, as well as get rid of all the bloat and all the extra crap that really doesn't do anything except slow down your system. However, one of the most important things with Windows 10 and also Windows 11 is that Microsoft is starting to lock out features if you don't have Windows activated. You used to just get that annoying message in the bottom right hand corner, but nowadays they're locking out things like backgrounds and disabling and enabling certain services just if you don't have it activated. So if you just want to check if Windows is activated, you can left click down here where the search bar is and then type in activation and left click activation settings, and then this will tell you if Windows is activated here. As we can see here, this copy is activated with a Windows 10 and it's a digital license. However, if you are unactivated and you want to get activated for extremely cheap, today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, has the coupon code BFTYC, which is exclusive to this channel, where you can type that in using the link in the description below and get Windows 10 Pro activated for as little as $15. I've been partnering with SCD Keys here for over 5 years now. All their keys are single and OEM licenses. They'll activate your motherboard and you don't have to worry about these keys getting deactivated in the future. And also, they work for Windows 11 as well. So you don't have to go out and buy a more expensive Windows 11 Pro key. You can just use the Windows 10 key. But that aside, we've also got a separate video up here where we've checked and these keys are legitimate. They always come back legitimate and there's no problems even from Microsoft themselves. Also, before we get on with this tutorial, do make sure you have the latest version of Windows 10 installed. And so you can just do this by left clicking on our search bar here, typing update, left click update. And as we can see here, it says you're up to date, so we don't need to do anything in terms of updating our system. We're on the latest 22H2 version of Windows 10. However, you notice it says here this PC doesn't currently meet the minimum requirements to run Windows 11. Now, if you want to run Windows 11, we do have a custom version out here on the channel. I'll put the link up here, which will allow you to get around these protections that Windows puts on. And quite frankly, they're just really annoying. But Windows 10 doesn't have any of that, which is why it's still a very favorable OS even compared to Windows 11. So after you've got activated, left click down here with the File Explorer option, and then I want you to make this full screen, and by double clicking on it, and then left click on view over here, we've got the options menu, which we can left click and change folder and search options. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that they've also got show recently used files in quick access, show frequently used files in quick access. I like to take these both off and click apply, as they can they're just essentially extra services that are running in the background that can clog up your machine. Now, if we click on view here and then we hold down the scroll bar here, and we go down to show sync provider notifications. So left click that, make sure that's turned off. Then we can click apply there. And also in search, if you've got a really slow system, you can also left click this right here. However, most systems nowadays should be pretty quick with the price of, especially for instance, cheaper Xeons. They're becoming as little as $10, even something on that. This setting shouldn't slow down, but it's mainly to do also with hard drives and SSDs. Basically, if you're running a hard drive as your main drive on your system, that's a big 3.5-inch drive, you may wish to actually left click this. I actually use this unchecked as I search for a lot of things when I'm video editing. So now we're back on the desktop here. We can right click and then left click here on display settings. And we'll get up to the first tab here. Now, nightlight settings, you can actually schedule this. And this is something I like to do with my local time here. So I actually like to turn on my night lights from about 7 p.m. and I can turn it off from about 6:30. So that's when I like my night lights to actually schedule itself. So I don't need any aftermarket programs like Flux or anything like that. And I do find it helps with my eyes at nighttime, especially since I'm using for my video editing non-OLED monitors. However, below that's Windows HD color. Now, this works a lot better on Windows 11. So for Windows 10, I actually prefer to turn this off. If we turn it on, even within this own video, I'll show you that the colors can become washed out. Things can become really bad, as opposed to Windows 11, which actually does a pretty good job of actually automatically locking in these settings. However, once we go down here, we can go to advanced display settings. Make sure your monitor is locked in with its maximum refresh rate here too. This is something that a lot of people miss out on. So it should be, in this case, it's a weird number that's close to 60 Hertz, but we'll take that anyway. But say for instance, you've got a 120 Hertz monitor. You do not want to be running this at 60 Hertz, for example. You want to be running this 120 Hertz if you've got a 240 Hertz and vice versa. So this is a setting you can change here just in the advanced display settings. So now we've optimized our display settings. We can then left click on sound right here, left click on sound control panel, and whatever device you're using, you want to generally make sure in advance you've got 24-bit 48 kilohertz. That's important for, just click OK there. For me, that's important if I'm gaming as well, because a lot of games are 24-bit 48 kilohertz. If you've got 96 kilohertz as well, you may wish to lock that in too, as some games do actually support 96 kilohertz. Now, that's pretty much all for that setting there. We can go down to notifications and actions, and here's where we can left click and turn all these off. I don't like Windows suggesting any of these notification services or having any of these enabled, as they're just annoying pop-up things, and they're just services running in the background. Then after that, we can left click on focused assist, and that's already turned off. But I like to turn all these off as well, automatic rules, and off as well for focused assist. And then left click on, after that, power and sleep. And we can actually go here straight away to left click additional power settings. And this will bring up a new menu. And from here, I'm going to left click high performance mode. And then I'm going to go to change plan settings. And now if you're on a laptop, you may wish to just use the balance settings, because laptops tend to not have as good of a cooling solution as desktop PCs, as well as the fact that if you're on battery power, you can juice up battery faster if you change some of these settings around. But for me, I like the snappiest, most responsive system. And so that involves me not just undervolting my systems, which is a different topic for a different day, but also making sure everything's running and it's responsive. And so what I do here is I go left click, change advanced power settings. And I like to change this turn off hard disk here. Select this little box and click 0. Then after that, I like to left click here on slideshow and go to paused. I don't want any slideshows running in the background. And then for sleep, I don't like my computer hibernating, because sometimes it can cause issues. So on high performance mode, it basically makes sure it's set to 0 and your computer doesn't hibernate. Now, USB select suspend settings, I leave this on, but if you're having problems with USB ports cutting out, you may wish to disable this, and that can keep them active all the time. So there's those settings there in terms of your minimum processor states, and so your PC is going to be basically active all the time. So there's that one there. We can click OK and we are finished. But also, while we're back at this main screen here, we can go best performance, and with our monitors, I like to have them turn off after 10 minutes. And then onto the storage tab right here, I like to make sure storage sense is turned off, which it should be off by default. However, we can also go left click on this little tab right here, optimize drives. And what we see here, we can optimize our SSD. It's optimizing live in this tutorial. I like to manually run this once a week, or if I notice that my SSD is getting a little bit sluggish, you can run this. If you're on a hard drive as well, you can defragment the hard drive too. But you'll notice here there's a scheduled optimization setting. Now, if you're lazy, you can just put this on weekly and it can do it for you. But I like to turn this service off, especially if I'm hardcore gaming or editing videos. I don't like any of this interrupting, as well as having a service running in the background. So we'll close that down, and then we can left click on tablet here, and don't switch to tablet mode, use the appropriate mode for my hardware. I can never use tablet mode because I don't hook up a tablet to my desktop computer. Now left click on multitasking. This is a big one depending on how you do things. Snap windows, I like to turn this off as I actually live stream, and I use weird sort of window configurations while I'm live streaming. And so if I have snap windows on, it'll automatically snap the windows to where I'm on. But if I turn it off, it won't snap anything for me. And then underneath that, we've got the timeline here. Show suggestions in your timeline. I like to left click this and turn this off. And then for the alt tab setting, I like to open windows only. And then we can go down now to shared experiences, and I like to left click, turn this off, the shared experiences tab right here. and then also go down to clipboard. And I actually like to turn this on, clipboard history. So save multiple items to clipboard to use later. Now, this is a personal thing. If you're copy pasting things a lot, which I do when I'm video editing and also when I'm doing different texts, for instance, making a YouTube video, this can come very in handy in that it saves. And if you press Windows V, it'll bring up a clipboard of all your copy paste that you've done. So if you don't use copy paste a whole lot, turn this off. If you're like me and you use it a lot, this is actually a really handy feature on both Windows 10 and 11. And then we can left click on remote desktop. I like to turn this off, enable remote desktop. So then we've just turned that off. Basically, remote, if you've got someone else wanting to control your PC, you might want to turn this on, but I never have people controlling my computers, so I turn this off except locally here. So I'm the only controller of the PC. So now we've closed that tab down, it's time for us to left click on the bottom right hand corner here, go to services, and we're just going to now get rid of these services that start up. So we can left click this status bar and go to running. If we left click that twice, it'll bring it up in an order that'll actually be alphabetical order with all the services running. So I like to left click on connected user experience and telemetry, and then left click on automatic and run that down to disabled, left click stop, left click apply, left click OK. And then there's another one here, distributed link tracking client. I like to left click this and then do the exact same as we did before, stop that service. Now, people have said if you've got a network attached storage, this can affect that. I've personally had NASs here in Australia and Japan, and turning off this setting has never affected my NAS's ability to function properly. So your mileage may vary here. If you're having some problems with the NAS, you may wish to leave that on. But that and connected telemetry, I like to turn them both off, and I find that actually helps, even on a really fast system, to just make things a little bit snappier. As well as optimized drives, that's already set to manual, so might want to make sure and check that this one is not running as well all the time in the background. And now after finishing that, we can left click our windows here, type in advanced system settings, and it shows here best match, view advanced system settings. So we left click that and it'll bring up a different kind of tab here with actually quite a few different settings that I like to do here. And then we can left click here on performance, and I like to essentially take these ones off. You can copy here what I'm doing, but essentially what this will do is keep Windows looking really good, but it'll just make things snappier in that when we do things as we did before, there's no transitioning, everything's just instant. And that's one. We can click OK, and then after here we can go to startup and recovery, left click this right here, and then I like to take this off, time to recover events, and that'll just help. And then from there we can actually go up to system protection here, left click this. Now if you use Windows 10 system protection, that's fine. I've never actually, in the history of using PCs, I've never once had to use this. And when I tried to use it, it was buggy and it restored my PC basically to a restore point that was reminiscent of a fresh install anyway. So for me, this thing is pretty much useless. So I like to left click on this here, the drive that it says protection is on for, and then left click configure, and then go disable system protection, left click delete, because that'll get rid of the 10 gigabytes that it's already using up on my SSD, and then click apply, and then click yes, and then click OK. And so that'll turn off not only a service, but it'll free up some space on our SSD. Now, while we're at it, we can left click on remote here. Now, even though we did disable this before, there's actually, click on advanced and click allow this computer to be controlled remotely, click OK, and then click allow remote assistant connections to this computer. I like to click apply here because I don't want people trying to, if there's some weird new hack that comes out where they find a bug and they can take advantage of this, I don't want someone controlling my PC and potentially causing damage with the information that they're able to gather from my PC. So now we've finished that process, we can go down to our search bar and type in settings, left click this app right here, and we've already gone through a few of these tabs. For instance, system, we've already done that whole tab right there. Devices and phone and network, they don't have any settings that we need to change. I mean, you can check them if you quickly want to see if there's anything worth changing, but we've already changed majority of those settings in those 4 tabs that we need to change. So we can go here to left click on personalization, and what we're going to do here is go down to colors, and what I like to do here is I like to make sure that choose your color. So I like a light accent here, but also you can change it to dark if you're using Windows at night. This is one thing that we did critique Windows for. I would love to see this be changed with a schedule like nightlight, for example, where during the day I've got it on light, and then during at night I can change it to dark mode. As you can see here, there's no real setting to change things for the Windows itself from a scheduled effect here. But however, what I personally do here is I go down to custom now, and I'm going to go down to the choose accent color, and I like to personally have it in red. For me, it's easier to see, especially at nighttime. I like less blue in my life, and I like more red, more fire. And so we're also going to click on titles, bars, and Windows borders. So that's just going to give us a red accent instead of the default Windows blue. And then we can also go down to lock screen here. And what I'm going to do is turn off these settings here, Windows Spotlight. I'm just going to have a picture instead. So if Windows boots up, it's not having to load some fancy slideshow. And then after we're done with that, we can skip a few menus right here and go down to the start menu. And this one here, show more tiles on start. So I actually like to take all these off except recently added apps. That's just to make sure something's installed. So if something installed recently, I can check on recently added apps. What we got after this is taskbar, and this is where we can customize our taskbar. I like to never. So here where it says combine taskbar buttons, I like to personally have that on never. Also, as we scroll down here, we can go to news and interests. I like to turn that off. And then also here, I like to turn system icons on and off. I like to have the actual location off and action center off, as well as meet now. So turn these things off, and that is just more of a preference thing, and just leaving off annoying things that I never use and they don't interest me. Though after that settings tab, we can then move on now to our apps tab. And there's actually quite a few things to do here. For instance, optional features, you can turn off a lot of, for instance, there's a lot of things that I like to go through here and turn off. So you can copy me if you want to. Steps recorder, I don't use any of that. So it's basically going through and saying, I use Japanese on my computer, so I'm going to leave that on. But it's basically math input, I don't need that. I mean, calculator still works fine without this. WordPad, I actually never use WordPad. I actually prefer to use Microsoft Word or text, as I find WordPad sort of just in the way. Windows Hello Face, if you use this, you can have that on. It's another service though. I would personally turn it off unless you like signing in with your phone. But that's otherwise, they're the features that I just have off personally in optional features, and we'll have to restart the computer to actually take those away. But app execution, aliases, Skype, I don't use Skype on this computer. Xbox Gamebar, I don't use that. Media player, I like to actually install a custom media player. And then also we've got some of the AMD services as well as Winget, and they're fine as well. So I do leave them on because they can be useful. Though going through the software here, basically what we're going to do is we're going to uninstall anything that we don't use. And so your mileage may vary here. Just go through and you're like, okay, Feedback Hub, I don't use that. I don't need that. I'm just going through, and feel free to just copy what I'm uninstalling here. These are things that I don't use personally. For instance, Mail, I use actually Outlook Express. Media Player, I don't use this. I use VLC Media Player. Microsoft Office 365, I've actually got an older version of Office, which I prefer. And then for Edge, I actually do use Edge. It's come a long way and it's actually really good now. But Microsoft OneDrive, going through here, guys, and really just, you get the gist of it. Anything I don't use, it's off. And some of these you'll have to actually get a extra confirmation here to uninstall, but that's up to you guys. So go through, take all the ones you don't use off on the computer, and we should have, after we're done with all this, we should have a Windows install that's got a lot less crap that we don't use. You also notice here that I've uninstalled some extra Xbox Live services. I don't use anything Xbox related with my PC, and also the games nowadays, I don't really play much games except on Steam. So if you're using Microsoft's Xbox PC game service, you may wish to leave these installed. So that's up to you guys. And then we've got default apps here. We can go through, and later on we'll install VLC, so that'll be our default media player. But we can also go down here to offline maps and just delete all maps and make sure this is turned off. metered connection, but automatically update maps, I like to turn that off too. And then for apps for websites, you can use this if you want to, Maps, but I like to just use Google Maps whenever I'm doing anything with mapping software or navigation. And then for startup, here's another important tab here where we're just going through and making sure that the services that we don't need are off. For instance, AMD noise suppression, I don't use that because I don't use noise suppression with my audio. However, it may be something you wish to leave on if that's what you wish to do. So Windows security notification, I like to turn this off too because it's another service that we don't need running when we start up our computer. Then onto the account setting, left click this, just go to sync your settings. I like to make sure this is off. So sync the settings here. I just like to make sure this is turned off. Then we get back to our settings here, time and language. We can set the time automatically. I actually like to turn this off after I've manually set the time, and we can see here we're in Tokyo at the moment, so our time is set perfectly fine on this PC. So we've got that one set up, and now we can turn this off because it's a service that's essentially running in the background. So once you're set up, you have time and everything's accurate in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. So now it's time to go on to the most important tab for a lot of you guys, and that's the gaming tab. So we left click this, and what we want to make sure here is that personally I turn this off because I don't use anything to do with recording with Xbox Gamebar. So if you're using Xbox Gamebar to record, say for instance, Xbox footage and stuff like that, you might want to leave this on, but I use personally either OBS Studio or I use Nvidia's just their natural shadow recorder. Or in this case, we've got an AMD card in our computer. I just use AMD's desktop capture services. So this one is off for me personally, though your mileage may vary here. Capture, we can make sure everything is just turned off here in these settings. And then for game mode, generally I like to leave this on, especially if it's a gaming PC. This can help, especially in terms of minimizing background services if you are, say, on a slower hard drive. So the more faster your system is, the less relevant this is. But I do like to leave it on because it can potentially help with a little bit of FPS. We have done a video on this in the past. I'll put the link up here if you are interested. Now, after Xbox networking, there's really nothing to check here, and we can go back to the settings tab and then left click on ease of access. Now, this one is important to set up Windows the way you like. Because we're on a massive 4K monitor here at the moment, it's automatically set it to 300%. And because we're doing a tutorial, this actually kind of is easy to see. So I'm just going to leave this the way it is, but usually I like to, on a big 4K, say for instance if it's over 40 inch, I like to have it around 225%. That's me personally. So change this to how your size is on your monitor, and you'll notice here everything's, as we've quickly done that, everything's changed. So that one's just a personal thing. Change it how you like it. And then we've got here automatically hide scroll bars in Windows. I like to leave this off because I like to have my scroll bars automatically displaying to know which tabs I can display. And basically it's more of a lag thing, input lag thing, where if it hides it, you can see there automatically there's like a little delay. I know it's not much, but I just like to have it off and I know where everything is. So also show a desktop background image. So if you take that off, you'll notice here it's just black. So if you're on a really slow PC, make sure to turn this off, but we'll just leave that on because our computer's okay. Now for mouse pointer, this one's controversial because you've got additional mouse settings up here where you can also go to the additional mouse options, and we can go to the pointer options. And this one's important because a lot of gamers like to have this turned off, enhanced pointer precision. I like to leave this on because it actually helps with my workflow. And also I play RTS predominantly for me, but if you're an FPS player and that's your priority, make sure to turn this off. So that one is a setting that will, depending on what gamer you are, make sure to leave this on or off. So now that we're done with the mouse pointer setting, there's actually a few settings, little settings within this ease of access tab that I like to turn on and off. So if we left click on color filters, I actually left click this box here, actually turn it on quickly, and then go to inverted, turn it off. And now that we can see here, if we've got Windows and Control and C, we can have now a shortcut that will essentially allow us to invert our windows at any given time very quickly and very easily. So for instance, if I'm looking online and I see this photo of something and it's either a meme or something like that, and people are like, oh wow, that's real, I can just quickly invert windows and tell if that picture's a fake. So it's something for me personally that I like to have on and off here. So your mileage may vary, but as we can see here by default, it's on grayscale and the shortcut key's turned off. So if we turn it on quickly, go to invert, allow the shortcut, then we can hit the Windows and Control and C at the same time. We can quickly turn that filter on and off very easily. So very handy feature that's in Windows 11 and Windows 10. And then also if we go down to Narrator here, I like to allow the shortcut to start Narrator. I don't use Narrator at all, so I turn that off personally. So here's all the settings that I turn off with Narrator. Obviously, if you need Narrator and that's something you need, keep that on. But get image description, so I just turn everything off here. But then we go down to the keyboard setting, and there's another setting here that I allow the shortcut key to start sticky keys. So if you use sticky keys, you might want to have this on, but I don't use sticky keys. And sometimes if I'm in a game and I'm pressing shift really quickly, I can get this annoying message that comes up if I press it more than 5 times. So I like to turn that shortcut off. And then we can go back here to the settings tab and we can go to search, and we can left click here on Microsoft account and work or school account, search history on this device. These are settings and services that I turn off. And safe search, I find on moderate, it's actually okay. I've never really come into a problem on leaving this on moderate. And then for searching Windows, the classic is absolutely fine there. So moving through now with privacy, there's actually quite a few settings in this tab that we're going to go through. Let websites provide locally relevant content by accessing my language list. So I like to actually turn these off because I'm not really interested in Windows recommending me anything and having a service in the background. So that one, I'll let other people do that for me, or other apps that I actually use do the recommending for me based on my IP address. Basically, if we go down to speech though, there's nothing to change there, but also inking and typing personalization, I like to turn that off. Diagnostics and feedback. So required diagnostics data only. This is usually enabled by default now. And also we can go down here to feedback frequency, and I like to turn this to never. And then we can go down to activity history and store my activity history on this device. I left click that, turn that off, clear my activity history. And then underneath that with app permissions, we already did location in a different tab. But if we go down now to camera, we can allow apps to access your camera. Now, I like to leave this on, believe it or not. But what I like to do is make sure the apps that are using it are the only ones selected. So basically what we can see here is none of these apps, I won't let them use my camera, but I will let, for instance, if I install OBS Studio, I'll let that use the camera. And then the same here with microphone, the next tab here. I only let the programs that I'm using, for instance, if I'm using Skype, I'll let that use the microphone and the camera, or OBS Studios, and I'll turn the rest of them off. And then we go down to voice activation here. I'm turning that off. Again, another service, we just go through and we turn all these off. And notifications, allow apps to access your notifications. Nope. So if you've ever had Facebook, like we want to give you notifications, you turn it on and then you're like, I've got this annoying Facebook notification. This is one of the reasons why. So you can turn that off right there. Then we can go down to account information and turn this off. Contacts, allow apps to access contacts, turn that off, allow apps in the calendar mode, phone calls. These are all settings I'm just going through because a lot of it, call history, same thing, tasks. A lot of these things are kind of a little bit invasive if you ask me personally. So we're going to leave these off. So other devices, background apps. Now background apps is important. This one actually is one of the most important tabs here. Do you want, for instance, are you listening to Spotify in the background? Are you listening to Microsoft Edge, a YouTube video in the background while you're playing games? Here's where you can have only those selected in background apps. So what we're going through here is any program that we're using that we want playing in the background, potentially we're going to leave that on. But in this case, there's nothing here because we haven't installed VLC yet, or we haven't installed OBS Studio. We're going to leave all these default ones off. And then app diagnostics, we're going to turn that off. Automatic file downloads, that's off by default. Documents off, pictures off, video off, file system, allow apps to access your file system. So if you're hooking up with Instagram and stuff like that, and you got your phone constantly hooking up to your PC, maybe to leave this one on, but I like to turn this off too. So There's that tab right there. So now we're on the final tab in the settings tab. This is left click on update and security. And we've got here Windows Update. Now we've got an optional update here. And I generally don't like to install the latest update previews because I find they can have just a few bugs, especially if I'm using a work computer. I don't want to get these latest updates. So we're just going to ignore that. Make sure this one is up to date right here. And then we could also go down to advanced options. And I like to make sure everything is turned off here, but also in terms of delivery optimization, this next menu here, we can go down here and go to allow downloads from other PCs. I personally like to leave this PCs on my local network, and that's it. If you turn this one on, you will be able to download, in some cases, updates faster, but you'll also be sharing those updates to other people on the internet. Think of it as a torrent system where you can get the downloads quicker, you can get the updates quicker, but you may also, especially if you're playing games, for instance, you may be sharing more packets than you need to, which can interrupt. So what I do here is basically make sure everything is tuned so you don't have any problems when you're in clutch situations while you're gaming. Now, after that tab, we can go down to left click on Windows Security, and we can just go to left click Virus and Threat Protection. Now, this is a pretty important tab because it's got some virus and protection settings here that I like to go left click on Manage Settings right here. And from here, I can change and take off cloud delivered protection. We just go through here, automatic sample submission, tamper protection, but I do leave real-time protection on. I find this doesn't really make a difference for your gaming FPS. And also I find that it can stop malware that gets embedded in a lot of these, I guess, apps. And some of these benchmarks, even for instance, when I download a benchmark, I even check it. And in the past, a benchmark that I downloaded off a website, a third-party website, actually had a virus embedded in it. So this helps stop that. So I was grateful for real-time protections. And now that we're back at the desktop, it is time to refer you guys to Windows optimization settings for your graphics card drivers. So if you're on Nvidia or if you're on AMD, we did do a whole dedicated section to both these graphics cards and their drivers and the settings I prefer there. I'll refer you guys to our Windows 11 optimization tutorial, also with the timestamp of that video. So if you want to use, if you've got an Nvidia graphics card and you want to know the best settings for that, as well as the AMD, do click on that link and check that out. But the last thing that we're going to do here on the desktop is just go to a website called ninite.com. So that's spelled NINITE.com. And while we're here, we can just customize our install package for what we need. For instance, as we were talking about before, I like to get VLC, as well as I like to have 7-zip installed when I come into .rar files and also .7-zip files. I can use this program. It's free to use. It's lightweight and it's really good. And then also for sharing files over the internet, I use qBittorrent. If you like a hassle-free install from the get-go, we're going to be sharing a custom Windows 10 ISO and how to do that in a separate upcoming video. So do stay tuned for that. But those are the three that I'm going to select right here. And then I'm going to go down to get your Ninite, and that'll give us an installer package, and we can just open that, install, and it'll automatically install those 3 applications so we don't have to do anything there. So completely hassle-free. And after all that, we're going to have a smooth running Windows 10 that is just ready to go. Now, the best thing about today's tutorial is that all these things are reversible. Everything we've done here, we can take it back. So if you come into some problems, you can run back through some of the steps, figure out what that was, and you should have no problems. I know there are other optimization tutorials that go pretty hardcore into things like regedit and stuff like that. Now, one thing you gotta be careful about with regedit, if you change those settings in there, it can break your whole Windows system. You can come into weird error messages, etc. So I like to keep my Windows as lean as possible, but also as clean as possible. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button for us. And also, if you have any questions or comments, then be sure to drop a comment in the comment section below. And also, we will have today's video sponsor if you want to get Windows 10 Pro for extremely good price. Use the link in the description below. Also, use that coupon BFTYC for that big juicy discount. And with that aside, guys, I'll look forward to catching you in the next tech video very soon. If you stayed this far and you're enjoying that Tech Yes content as always, be sure to hit that sub button, ring that bell, and I'll see you next time. Peace out for now. Bye.